Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's William Bellamy. I'm here tonight to talk to you about the United Socialist States of America. That's right, it's not a joke. That's what some people want to do. But before we get into it, if you like my content, please like, subscribe, make a comment, share with your friends. If you disagree with me, go ahead and hit dislike and tell me what you disagree with, and we'll have a discussion about it. You may change my mind, but then again, I may change yours. Now, as we're going into this, I would like to clarify the majority of the people who describe themselves as socialist are actually members of the Democratic Party. Now, what I would like to say to that as we go into this, no. Joe Biden, who as of this point will be the president elect, is not a socialist. At no point in his 47-year political career has he shown that. The majority of the Democratic Party does not identify as socialist. Bernie Sanders would be an exception. Now, moving forward. Socialism sounds really great. And this is coming from somebody who's read Marx and Engels and Che and Castro and can quote Lenin, Stalin, and Khrushchev and even Mao's Little Red Book. I own most of it. I've read it. I go back to it as a reference occasionally. But my one question is, show me where socialism has succeeded. True socialism actually exists in very few countries. And historically has existed in very few. They talk about socialized systems in other countries, such as the medical system in several countries in Europe, but they are not socialist countries. So let's look at what actually happens in a socialist country. Because to quote Lenin, the goal of socialism is communism. So we use the Soviet Union as an example. So when Americans like Bernie Sanders or Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez talks about socialism, or even Vosh in his show, because yes, I listen to him because I do find him highly intelligent and he makes very good arguments. I'm not going to say they're valid, but they're good. Well, in socialism, you're going to have this much money every month and everything is the same for everybody. Well, here's a secret. Yes, you will have a set salary and they'll give you a set place to live and they'll give you a set job. And when you don't show up for that job, or when you're aggravated by the position that they put you in based on your place in the party, then you'll be denounced. And you can be denounced because what they teach is your spouse, your children, your neighbors. If someone speaks out, they're denounced. And then they are arrested. They are interrogated, read torture, and open up any volume of the Gulag Archipelago and you can find something about being tortured. And then they're sent to a camp. A work camp, a re-education camp, thought camp, call it whatever you want. In fact, Disney's movie Mulan was in the same province in China that approximately 1 million beleaguered Muslims are currently being held in. That's socialism in effect. You have no choice. They tell you what to think, how to think, and when to think. They tell you when you will get up. They tell you when you will go to work and what job you will do. And I say this based on knowing and talking to people who grew up in the Soviet Union or Romania or Hungary or North Korea. There's a link in the description to Voice of North Korea, which is a young woman, highly intelligent, very well spoken, who grew up in North Korea. And at 13 years old, made the courageous decision to attempt to escape. And as part of that, had to make some really adult decisions at 13 years old. And she made those to save her mother and her father. Go through and listen to her stuff. You know what, if you don't want to subscribe to me, so be it. But subscribe to her and Listen to what she's got to say, because she grew up in it. I didn't. I grew up in the United States. But I also know you read all these things. The Communist Manifesto sounds great. It's a worker's paradise and everybody is equal, but it never works that way. And then we get the socialist argument of, well, it's never been done right. Well, how many times are they going to have to do it wrong before they get it right? Venezuela is a great example. Sitting on top of the largest oil deposits in the world, the entire globe. Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, they have more oil than all of them. And yet they're starving to death. Because they decided we're going to give and give and give, but we're not going to build a sustainable economy. The Soviet Union. Ukraine was considered the breadbasket of the Russian Empire. Now, after the October Revolution, we're going to start coming up with lists. We'll come up to lists in a second. But we're going to imprison the kulaks, who were actually the ones running the farms at that point. And we're going to put other people in charge of agriculture who don't know what they're doing. So you take the breadbasket of Russia, the Russian Empire, which fed that empire for a century, and sheer mismanagement because of collectivization led to man-made famine in less than 5 years. You saw it in Zimbabwe. You see it currently in Venezuela. They have these resources, but because of a command-directed economy and collectivization and nationalization, now people are starving. They're not rioting in the streets because they want an LCD TV. They're not rioting in the streets because they want the newest iPhone. They're rioting because they're starving. And we use the example of what's going on in our country right now with quarantine. Oh, we're going to go to a lockdown for 6 to 8 weeks. So in that 6 to 8 weeks, how many businesses close permanently? How many people permanently lose their jobs? And yes, if we're willing to create a larger deficit, the government can support these people. But at what point does it get to be too much? Where Bob and Sue have unemployment and they have relief funds. But when they go to the store, there's no beef, chicken, or pork to buy. There's no eggs. There's no milk. Because the store didn't receive their order. Because the warehouse no longer had in stock what they needed. Because the manufacturer didn't get the raw material. Why? Because we're on lockdown. Welcome to the end of the Soviet Union. Welcome to what's going on in Venezuela now. Because that's what this becomes. When people are not allowed to do, which are not under a socialist system, because it sounds all well and good, but the economy, economically, and I'm speaking from somebody with a degree in economics, we're all in on this, but we have to appoint somebody to oversee it. Well, we have to remove these people, because even though they know what they're doing, then they're not, because we can't have that. We have to have collectivization. People without land have to be given land. But they don't know how to use that land. And the people in charge of them don't understand agriculture. So then we go from these fertile fields. If you've ever driven through Kansas, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. To man-made famine. Because historically that has happened in every single country that socialists have taken control of. And I'm ready for the argument that Lenin and Stalin were communists, not socialists. But once again, I'll quote Lenin. The goal of socialism is communism. Now let's move forward in the United States today. Bernie Sanders, I do understand what he's saying with student loans and healthcare. We'll go to healthcare after I finish this segment, but you have people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Jennifer Rubin and Evan McMullin saying we need to make a list of Trump supporters. And they need to be blackballed. And they can never hold office. They can never be on a board. And they can never be accepted in polite society. But the key to me is they can never be allowed as faculty. Now, if we don't allow them as faculty, then what happens to challenging thought? Why does the First Amendment exist? The First Amendment exists to allow speech to challenge thought that you don't agree with. And the example I will give you is Ruth Bader Ginsburg voted that burning the American flag was within the First Amendment. And later she wrote an editorial stating she did not agree with burning the American flag. But legally, it was held within the First Amendment. And I have so much respect for her for both actions. And honestly, I agree with her. Because as a veteran, as somebody who was born and raised in the United States, who loves my country, every time somebody sees a burning American flag on the news, they think about what that flag stands for. Whether I agree with it or not, it becomes a valuable tool in making others think. Now, people talk about socialized medicine or the one-payer system. Well, we go back to how do you support that? Well, we're going to tax the 1% and the corporations. Well, it's been proven economically, you can't raise enough funds from the 1% alone to support socialized anything. And how long is it going to be before that 1% in those corporations move somewhere else? Ask New York, it's happening to them now. They've raised taxes to the point where people are just leaving. And why wouldn't they? That's what happens in a socialist system. And then once you trap them, the initiative goes away because they have nothing to gain. Now, stop and think about this and do your own research. But if you can show me a successful socialist country somewhere, I'll be shocked. And by successful, I mean they don't imprison their citizens unduly. You argue our criminal justice system, you know what? To a point, I'll agree with you. And I would agree that we need to look at our social welfare systems and come up with better, more effective plans. I 100% agree with you, especially where it concerns mental health and drug rehabilitation. And I can say that as a former corrections officer. But a socialist system is not the answer. It has never and will never succeed. And one of the biggest problems with a socialist system is human nature. Now, with that being said, do your own research. Read what's out there. Look at history. But most of all, question the people that are doing this. Why? What do they have to gain? What will you actually gain by following these things? And with that being said, if you like my content, like and subscribe, add a comment, share with your friends. If you dislike, let me know what you dislike about it. We can have a civil discussion about it. We'll even put it on my channel. You might change mine, but I might change your opinion. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, good evening.